I'm Kevin Davis, and today I'm flying solo for the Catholic Family Podcast, talking about rock and roll, the origins thereof, and if it is indeed evil or not. I want to start out with a few things. First of all, I am not an expert in rock and roll. I am not a priest. I am not a moral authority. I just want to tell you what I have seen from my research and my own personal experiences with rock and roll. I don't want you to get the impression I'm trying to judge anyone if they listen to it. I just want to inform with the things that I have learned over my days as a wedding DJ and just as my time, listening to rock and roll and now having done a little bit of research on it. Secondly, I am going to soon be getting off of this platform due to many reasons. I'm sure many of you listening already know the reasons why I will no longer support this platform as well as many other social media platforms. I will be moving to Podbean, which I believe will also be hosted on Apple and Spotify, two companies I also don't really support, but if that's where you want to get your podcast, go ahead and do it. I think you can go also straight to Podbean. This Podbean does cost a little bit of money. I'm obviously totally fine with paying for it, but I did create a Patreon account for anyone who wants to support this channel. If you're on and listening frequently, if you want to support $1 a month, $10 a month, that would be awesome. It does help me to have a little more time and feel a little bit better about spending time to create content, which I do hope is edifying and hopefully also informational like this one about rock and roll. The Patreon account is attached to the comment section. And again, please follow the Podbean link, which will also be attached in this comment section so that you can start following me on there, because I will not for long be publishing material on this platform. Okay, so rock and roll. Now, this is a pretty controversial topic, and I know that many people are probably already upset just with the headline of "Is rock and roll evil?" It's a very good question, and I've heard many different opinions on it from bishops and priests. I've heard the opinions that any music with a beat at all is intrinsically evil. I've heard opinions that, as long as you don't get evil from it, it's okay. I've heard opinions that the Beatles are evil. I've heard opinions that the Beatles are great. So there are many different opinions, and we don't have the hierarchy of the church to officially say if it is good or bad. We really have to use our own judgment and determine if this is something we want going into our brains and something that we want our children to hear. Now, rock and roll, as we know it, really began back in the 1950s. Now, I guess that's not even as we know it. It's really progressed as time has gone on, but the term really began in the 1940s. Now, before we go any further, I do want to also say that this is an adult program, so anyone with kids, I would turn it off now. There is a somewhat adult content. Obviously, it's not going to get too nasty, but it is an adult matter, and so please, if you have children listening, they should leave the room, or you can listen to it later when you are alone. Now, in the 1940s, the term came around really from the rhythm and blues section area of music. Rock and roll at the time was really well known to be a sexual term. Some people say it also comes from the rocking of a boat or a ship in the seas. They rock and they roll. But really, as the term, progressed and as people got to know it, it was well regarded as a sexual term. So as we start this podcast, the very name of what we're talking about is immoral and impure. So not a good start for rock and roll. Now, beginning in the 1950s, mid-1950s, there was already fairly serious scrutiny by the Catholic Church. Now, in the studies I've been able to do on Google, which is not helping me very much, there's not real solid evidence of the church condemning rock and roll. There are some instances where bishops condemned certain shows, one of them being Elvis. One of the first comments I find on Google that on February 28, 1957, a month before Elvis's show came to town, this is a quote, Samuel Cardinal Stritch, a Roman Catholic Archbishop of Chicago, publicly condemned rock and roll. Quote, he said, some new manners of dancing and a throwback to tribalism in recreation cannot be tolerated for Catholic youths. Now, this is not coming from the Pope or from Rome, but still this is a Catholic bishop in Chicago. Now, I think personally that this is a really interesting connection and a really sad, depressing connection, that rock and roll really began in the mid to late 1950s when the Catholic Church was beginning to soften and to prepare for the Great Apostasy in the Vatican II Council in the early 1960s. Now, the next step for rock and roll, after Elvis Presley and these other, kind of formed from doo-wop into this, rock and a little bit harder rock and roll. And the first band that is really connected with this international, almost religious experience of rock and roll was, of course, the Beatles. And the Beatles started to become famous in Europe in the 1960s, in particular 1962 and 1963. This was, of course, during the Second Vatican Council. So it's ironic, I guess you could say. It's fitting that rock and roll really started to spread as a religious type of music in a way, that people were starting to become obsessed with it and it became their lives, and they went bonkers crazy while listening to it and watching it. And the Beatles were really the first band that brought that into life, and that was during the Vatican Council. As you see, as the church weakened, rock and roll started to almost take its place. And as you watch the Beatles progress, I think in the beginning they didn't have terrible lyrics. I think many times a lot of them were simple about puppy love and all of these different things, but as they went on, they progressively got worse and worse and more immoral, and they really latched themselves to this drug, sex, and rock and roll idea of the 1960s and 70s, and they were really at the forefront of this whole idea and this whole anti-Catholic movement that moved away from God and into this area of sin, really. And so I think at this point it wasn't quite your devil worship, in the front of your face, but it was progressively moving that way. It went like the Vatican II. It was very soft at first, and a few little changes, and innocent, and then progressively got worse and worse. And as you start to move into the 1970s and 80s, and you started to find bands like Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, John Lennon himself, many of these are directly connected with Satanism and with the devil. They are fairly well known to have sold their souls or to at least been delving into the occult. David Bowie is one of the more famous ones. He recently passed away. I hope that he found God by the end, because he definitely did not have God during the most of his life. David Bowie was quoted to say, quote, "Rock has always been the devil's music. I believe rock and roll is dangerous. I feel we're only heralding something even darker than ourselves." David Bowie was known to be into the occult and known to be very good friends with the leaders of the Church of Satan. Mick Jagger, also the lead singer of Rolling Stone, definitely connected with also, again, the Church of Satan, and wrote a song called "Sympathy for the Devil." So again, that's a little more sketchy. Many people say that he sold his soul, but I couldn't find any direct evidence of that. Either way, the music and Mick Jagger himself are, let's say, to say the least, is very questionable. John Lennon also and Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin were both students, quote-unquote students, of Aleister Crowley. Crowley was really the founder of modern occultism and the founder of modern Satan worship. So he was kind of the lead architect of the modern evil in many ways. And I think many of your modern leaders in politics, in Hollywood, in music, are all followers directly from Aleister Crowley. So that he's someone that, if you want to go down a rabbit hole and find out many of the roots of our issues and many of our really direct problems with Satan in the world today, I think that Aleister Crowley is definitely one of the ones where you can find a direct correlation. These are only some of the ones from the 1970s and 80s and 90s who are really publicly known to have delved into occultism and to devil worship. I think you also have the Eagles. They wrote Hotel California, and were also known to be friends with the what was his name, David LeMay, I think, something like that, who is the head and founder of the Church of Satan. So again, dark stuff, and this is something that, maybe you say these are only a few people. involved in rock and roll. It's not rock and roll in general. And I don't disagree. I don't know. I don't have any authority. I'm not even sure rock and roll itself is evil. I have listened many times to rock and roll and to many different bands, many different songs, and I don't know if it directly is from the devil, but I think we can say that there are certain bands and certain songs that are directly encouraged and straight from the devil, and who are, trying to praise Satan himself. And if this is the case, obviously we need to be worried and to be very careful and safe about anything that we're listening to, and especially anything that our children are listening to. And from my own personal experience, in the last 10 years or so, again, as a wedding DJ, I've had a lot of experience putting together playlists and watching music videos and listening to music itself. And for many years, I really just put it together and didn't really look at the lyrics until I started to do Catholic weddings. And I started to more look into the lyrics and look into a little more, okay, what do I want to play at a Catholic wedding, at a Catholic reception? Because, many Catholic receptions still have normal, pump up music and dancing and stuff, which I begin to myself question, honestly, even though I was a wedding DJ for several years. One of these that I personally have come across is Lady Gaga. Now, I think that no one would question that she is already a bit of a lunatic and a bit of a sick, immoral, evil person. But I think we're generally willing to say, just let it slip, but her music is catchy and it doesn't seem all that bad. Well, when you know that Lady Gaga is personal friends, very good friends, with a woman named Maria Abramovich, who is a witch who publicly summons devils and does many, many other terrible, terrible things, which I will not even discuss on this show. And this is public. This is no conspiracy theory. You can look it up yourself. And Lady Gaga is one of her direct followers and promotes her work regularly. Lady Gaga also is known to sneak in immoral phrases and bad words and very bad meanings to her songs, and you kind of slip past it because you don't understand what she's saying. So you're bouncing and dancing to these different songs of hers, well, not really understanding what is actually being said. You go back and read the lyrics, and they are directly immoral, directly evil, and sometimes directly devil worship. So I would say, first off, no matter what, if you continue to listen to rock and roll, you continue to listen to pop music, do not listen to Lady Gaga. If you hear her come on, turn it off. Now, again, I'm not judging you for any other stuff. I just say, from my personal experience, she is a devil worshiper, and there are rumors that she even puts curses and hexes in her music. I think this is actually commonly known to be done through radio and television, that they do put in curses and Wiccan, blasphemies in music and TV programming. Now, this is not something I can prove, but I believe that there are even executives who have come out after their time in media and said that this does indeed happen. So definitely something that immediately turns me off to the entire genre of rock and roll, pop music, and TV itself. Now, a couple other things that I've personally experienced that I have come across in my time, doing a little research and just, again, as a wedding DJ, I came across a music video of Maroon 5. Now, back 10, 15 years ago, they were the band. I'm sure everyone remembers this band with the high voice and really bouncy, catchy tunes. And they were the top group for, it had to have been 2 or 3 years, maybe 10, 15 years ago. One of the songs they sang was called Animals. Now, again, this is one of those songs, when you're listening to it, it seems pretty okay. It's kind of catchy. I never liked it, honestly. I don't like Maroon 5. I don't like the high-pitched women-sounding men. But it was very popular, and I think many people played it. I think I played it at weddings. I never even thought about it until I just happened to go, I think before a wedding one time, and I was looking through music videos to put together a playlist, and I came across this Animals video by Maroon 5. And I'm a pretty tough guy. I've seen a lot of nasty things online and bad movies and whatever. I mean, so I'm fairly tough when it comes to not being affected by gross, evil things, which is probably not good, but it is what it is. I've gone down many rabbit holes, and I've seen many, many terrible things and terrible written things, which would scare, I think, many people. But this video by Maroon 5 is one of the craziest, most disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. And this was not digging in a Reddit rabbit hole looking for the true source of evil in the world. This was on YouTube. And it is pornographic, and it is really about people being animals and human sacrifice. Really, it's about killing people, and there's blood and gore and sex, and it is really maybe the most incredibly disturbing thing you could possibly imagine seeing online, and it's on YouTube. Your children can get on YouTube and look for that song because it's catchy and they've heard it in the car, and they can watch this video. Again, this is just something that should probably turn us all off to the rock and roll genre as a whole, but for sure, 100%, be careful what your kids are listening to, and really be careful what they're watching on YouTube, because these music videos are directly evil and directly occasions of sin. Now, moving on, there's another song that I thought was really interesting that I caught, partly because I was in the car one time with a couple of girls, good Catholic girls that I know very, very well, who are extremely good, moral young women. And a song came on the radio, and they started to sing, at the top of their lungs, because it was this, again, really catchy song by Meghan Trainor. I don't know the name of the song. I think it's called Dear Husband, maybe. And I already didn't like the song already because I knew some of the implications that the singer is trying to get. And after I heard these two girls singing, it made me think, okay, I'm going to go look at the lyrics, or I'm going to listen to the lyrics next time I hear it and really try to see what she's saying. And here are some of the lyrics from this Meghan Trainor song that these good young women were singing. Quote, "You got that 9 to 5, but baby, so do I. So don't be thinking I'll be home and baking apple pies. I never learned to cook." Okay, so, you think, oh, cool, yeah, tough woman, she's working, she's not baking, she's not taking care of her husband, she doesn't have kids, she doesn't have a good Catholic mentality of actually how women should act and how women should be the heart and the caretakers of their home. She is directly equal to this man, and he has to do everything she tells him to do. That is exactly the entire message of this entire song, that if you don't do what I tell you, then you are going to pay for it. And unfortunately, even worse, if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do, you're going to pay for it because I'm not going to give you certain physical favors. This is how crazy the song is. Continuing with the lyrics. After every fight, just apologize. And maybe then I'll let you try and rock my body right. Even if I was wrong, I'm never wrong. Why disagree? Why disagree? Again, this is a song that sounds fun, it sounds nice, and it's directly evil. It's not just feminist. It is from the devil. Read those lyrics. From the devil, no question. That is absolutely anti-Catholic and something that no one should ever be singing, listening to, no less singing. And it's so easy to get into because you don't really listen to what they're saying. You just sing it because it's catchy, it sounds good. And some of, maybe a third of the lyrics, like, hey, I totally connect with that, until you really look into it, and it's evil. So there's another one, Meghan Trainor. If you hear that song come on, turn it off. Turn off the radio. This is only the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. This is scratching the surface. This is, what did I just talk about? 3 songs. I guarantee you 99% of rock music and pop music is bad. I just think it. And you'll have 1% that is good, 1% that is very decent, has even moral themes. But these days, boy, oh boy, is it rare. Now, I want to end the show talking about a couple other things that are not even just pop. They're not rock. They're actually even considered family-friendly songs. And these are songs that you'll hear very often actually directed at children. Now, the first one is the Macarena. Now, that's not necessarily directed at children, but it's a very popular song that people always play at weddings and everyone dances to. The Macarena is a terrible, terrible, terrible song. It is a song about a young girl giving her body to the friends of her boyfriend when he's gone. The dance itself, the movements, are seductive and evil. They're just evil. They're literally, while this woman is singing this in Spanish, that she is seducing everyone she knows, cheating on her boyfriend or husband, you're making these same moves that are supposedly her seduction of these men. This is a dance that I'm sure many of us have danced before. I've danced it. I didn't know what she was saying. I thought it was kind of this cute, fun dance. It is directly evil. I mean, you listen. Go look at this up yourself. Go look up the Macarena. You can look up the words. You will never doubt it again that it is straight from the devil. But they sneak it in and make it into this kind of family-friendly dance because it's fun and cute. No. Don't ever dance it. Here's another one. This is crazy. Now, this is one that I don't have direct evidence for this. I can't tell you this is absolutely true. I don't know, but there is good reason to believe that the Hokey Pokey is actually Wiccan, satanic, and a direct mockery of the Catholic Mass and the consecration in the Catholic Mass of our Lord's, of the bread and wine into our Lord's body and blood. So just the idea that it's possible should make you think, okay, I never ever want to hear this dance again. Hokey Pokey likely comes from hocus pocus, right? It definitely sounds like it. I don't have direct evidence that it did, but there's a lot of internet research you can do to see that it likely does. Hocus pocus is a direct blasphemy, an insult, and hex that mocks the words of the consecration. So here's another thing. If you ever watch a movie that says hocus pocus in it, turn it off. It is a hex. It is a curse, and it is from the devil to mock Christ and to worship Satan. This isn't hyperbole, folks. It sounds like it. It sounds like it, I know, but it's not. It's totally not. Look at these artists coming out and saying, these things are from the devil, and they are in a dark place that we don't really understand. The Hokey Pokey, you're doing these motions of putting your hands in and hands out and doing a shake. Hard to know what they're really trying to tell you to do, but they say that it is a direct insult, derision, mockery of the priest's movements in the Mass. Even if this isn't true, I think it should definitely awaken us that this is a song that we should absolutely never dance to again, and absolutely, if we hear it, plug your ears, tell the DJ to turn it off. The last one I want to talk about, and this is a tough one, and this one is not as directly evil as some of these other ones, but it definitely merits a short discussion because it was the takeover song of the last 10 years. It actually became a part of our culture in many ways. And the song is Let It Go from the movie Frozen. Now, before I go into this, I want to send you to a True Restoration Media podcast. It's a free podcast, which they did regarding this topic. And they talked about Frozen. They talked about Disney in general. It's extremely good. I highly, highly recommend it. And I will link it in this, in the comment section of this video. Definitely something you should go and watch because our children are watching Disney. I watched Disney as a kid. And I'll just leave it at this, that it's a very, very questionable company that puts out very, very questionable content. But back to Let It Go. Here are some of the lyrics from Let It Go. And I know you've heard this many, many times, but have you actually listened to the lyrics? Keep in mind this is for little 4, 5, 10-year-old girls to sing. Let it go, can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. It's funny how some distance makes everything seem small, and the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules. To me, it sounds like they are directly telling these young girls that no one can tell these young girls what to do. There are no rules. There's no right. There's no wrong. This means there's no God, of course. To test the limits and break through of what? What are you breaking through of? What your parents are telling you to do? What your priests are telling you to do? What your leadership in society even is telling you what to do? We wonder why there are so many issues of rebellion and immorality in the world and then we go and look at these things that our children are listening to. Am I saying this is directly evil? No, I'm not. Judge for yourself. Look at the lyrics of these songs. Is this something you want your little girl singing to? It's a really crazy thing, and I think we have to pay more attention to what is going on in these songs. Most of the time, it's just not good. And again, I've sung many of them. I've listened to many of them in the recent past. But why? Why put ourselves in that position? Why listen to this rock and roll, which has been even condemned by the rock stars themselves as coming from the devil? I can't warn you enough. From the little research I've done, very little, beware of what you listen to, and especially beware of what your kids listen to and watch. My goodness, YouTube is a pit. It's a pit. And I know I'm broadcasting on it now. I will soon be off. Let's see if they even let me publish this because I'm bashing their own platform. There's so much evil out there. Why be part of it? Go and listen to church music and Gregorian chant and classics like Mozart. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, and I know you're thinking, oh, it's boring. That's my grandma's music. I totally get it. But just try it. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. You might find yourself being more lively, being more happy, being more at peace with yourself. The rock and roll music is meant to get your heart pumping. It's meant to get you excited and angry and rebellious. Are these Catholic things? Answer it for yourself. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's episode. I hope I pointed out at least a few songs that if you hear, please turn them off. I mean that really wholeheartedly. I'm not saying all rock and roll. I don't know. That's well above my head. But these few that I've seen, I've witnessed, please don't listen to them. And when it goes to like Maroon 5 and their one evil song, if they got one song that evil, I would absolutely turn off any other song they ever play. I don't care if it's good. Turn it off. Maroon 5, Lady Gaga, Meghan Trainor, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles. Give it up. I will. Thanks for listening. This is the Catholic Family Podcast. God bless.